morning, and thank you all for joining us for the presentation, New Residential Racking, brought to you by AEE Solar. Before we begin, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please notify me by typing your question in the questions pane of your control panel on the right-hand side of your screen and click send. We will be having a question and answer session following the presentation. You're welcome to submit your questions at any point during the webinar, and we will do our best to answer as many as possible after the presentation. There will be a brief survey that will pop up in a new window immediately following the webinar. Please take a couple of minutes to complete it, and we will email you a copy of the presentation. If there are no questions, I would like to go ahead and introduce our presenters today: Josh Brister, Product Management and Technical Sales with AEE Solar, and Glenn Hall, Applications Engineer with AEE Solar as well. I'm going to go ahead and pass the presentation over to you, Josh.
All right. Well, thanks, Caitlin. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today on, based on yesterday's weather, what is undoubtedly a rainy day across America. I've called in some support today. You may notice I'm got a little bit of a cold today, thanks to my beautiful children who brought that home for me. So I've asked Glenn to step in. I'll cover the beginning of this presentation and talk a little bit about the rationale, the business case, if you will, behind some of these products. And lucky for me, I've got Glenn to handle all the tough details. So with that said, let's get started. Alrighty, so here's our agenda today. I want to talk briefly about some trends in racking, things that will, probably come as no surprise, but may. And then we'll spend a lot more time discussing what are the outcomes of those trends? What have we, as AEE Solar and Snap and Rack, decided to do about it? So we'll be covering tile replacement products for S100, which is our, kind of our everyday rooftop racking system. That's the key to the Snap and Rack line. Talk about Junction Box XL and some of the variants that we've developed, universal wire clamp, and then we'll get into the really interesting stuff. RL, which you also may hear to refer to as RL 1.5, and then our Ultra Rail product, which we're of course very excited about. And time permitting, we'll have some time at the end to take some questions and hopefully provide some answers as well. So what's new in racking? I think as people who work in solar, we're hypersensitive, we're hyper aware of the pressure to drive down costs and components. I mean, look, solar is a solution, is a market we sell into, in a lot of instances because power is too expensive for people to buy. We're trying to provide something more cost effective. So of course, there's going to be downward pricing pressure on the total installed cost. So what we've got here is some data from NREL on residential PV systems, kind of benchmarked since 2010. And you see here, kind of a stacked bar chart. The obvious one is the pressure on module prices. So we've seen that go from about $250 a watt in 2010 to somewhere around the 50–60 cent watt range in 2017. But not to be missed out here is the compression on the soft cost. So that's that beige colored line there, if you can see that. That's everything to do with install labor, what I would call direct variable labor. So, hours on the roof, hours spent chasing down parts, back and forth to the truck, you name it. So you've seen that come down dramatically over time. And then that light blue line right below that is just the pure physical cost of the components that do go on the roof, structural and electrical components. And we've seen some compression there. We've seen some rationalizing in a lot of ways of what's really needed, what's the best way to do this in terms of getting the total product cost down, and as well as that beige line, how do we take labor out? And I really think that Snap and Rack was key in a lot of these advancements of having kind of one tool installation product. So you get up on the roof, you don't need a lot of miscellaneous tools and ratchets and straps and other things. We like to say that a lot of these products can be installed with one single half-inch driver, as well as the snap-in module attachments and accessories. Snap right into the rail, no drilling, no torquing, etc. So very proud of all of that, and we're excited about where we're going in the future. This is some data I found when researching just kind of how important is structural or racking in preventing permitting issues, and was happy to find some really good data from New York State. So this comes from their permitting and inspecting guide. It's a really great resource if any of you guys are working in the New York State area on kind of tips and tricks and best practices, what exactly they want to see. And what we're showing here is kind of reasons for failure. So reasons that PV systems got delayed or not permitted or not granted PTO. Somewhat of a surprise to me, but probably not for you. Far and away the greatest reason for a project being delayed is labeling, which it seems so simple. We carry a variety of label packs here at AEE. We try to sell them on almost every job, but I suppose when you're dealing with the system and you've got to have labels every so many feet and on every single component, things are just going to get missed. So call out here, this is one of Glenn's favorite product categories, is we do sell the convenience packs of labels. So we bundle together all of the various labels you'd need for a single job, and we sell that as a pack. So rather than having 20 different rolls of labels in your trucks, you can just order one pack per job. Getting back to racking, I did want to point out here, grounding 53%, conductors 40%, structural 28%. So, excuse me, all of these really key components or really key aspects to your installation that can drive delays, can hold up you guys getting paid, and frankly, that's what we're here to talk about today. So, not just for aesthetics, not just for getting your permit and keeping the equipment safe, but for keeping your project on time as well. All right, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Glenn because I sense that I'm about to cough, and Glenn, take it away.
Okay, so in California, Arizona, a lot of the southern states, we have a lot of ceramic and concrete tile roofs. These tiles can be difficult and challenging to not only walk upon, but also install upon. And broken tiles basically really add up the cost to it, especially if you have to find tiles that match exactly. Run off to the boneyard, try to find some old tiles, match color, customer's not happy. So the cost of replacement tiles, the time and labor to source and correct these tiles and to install them, sometimes send a crew back after the job to replace a broken tile or two. That all adds up to the cost and could add 3 or 4 cents a watt to solar installations on tile roofs. So that's something we want to try to avoid. So everybody's looking for a solution for that. Advanced slide, please. So a lot of people have been moving. Originally, you would have a standoff, which is shown in the bottom. That is the first method that came for tile installs on roofs. That's a time-consuming process involving first putting, removing the tiles, finding the correct rafters, installing the standoffs, and then having almost an assembly line and a separate team assigned just to cut and drill the tiles in the exact spots to refit them in. Depending upon where you are, those tiles and the age of them, they can break easily, again, adding to that pile of broken cement in the corner. So then the tile hook came along. That addressed some of the issues. But again, trying to get the tiles to fit and lay correctly afterwards involved a lot of the cutting and the grinding of the tiles. So that was something that OSHA has regulations about for good crews that are paying attention to this and protecting their workers. There's mandatory cutting equipment that's required with a water delivery system, filtrations, and ideally the employees also have to go get medical exams to ensure that they're not subjected to problems down the road. So that's all stuff that installing with either tile hooks or standoffs, those solutions have issues. So Snap and Rack has now introduced a tile replacement solution. So this involves placing a standoff with a sliding channel, allowing the standoff to appear where it is necessary under the tile. So on flat tile, it can be located in the middle of the tile. For a curved S tile, you generally want your penetration and your hole to be on the top riser so that you can basically find the rafter. There's a good adjustment there to slide the standoff to the left or to the right to come up where you need it. And then a metal black flashing then is installed on top, and it is created such that it will fit most shapes of tiles. And the net positive result there is that you'll have 30 or 40 tiles at the end of the job, which could be used to replace the ones that are broken from stepping on or accidental breakage. All of these tiles with the standoffs are under the array, so with the black flashing probably will be very minimally seen from the customer. And it's going to result in a net labor savings and potentially removing 1 or 2 people from a tile install crew, because you don't have to have that assembly line on the other side of the roof cutting and measuring and grinding those tiles. So some of the features and benefits. So the first slide showed the S tile. Here is the more a different tile replacement, a W tile that is shown here. There's also a flat tile flashing that we sell, so there's 3 different kits currently. But it is a soft aluminum flashing, and this can be easily formed and fit, and it has the wings on the side that will allow for to fit different tile widths. The standoff with a threaded stud, it provides a very simple operation, and again, we're going for minimal tools on the roof to speed installation and simplify labor. And we have a new patented umbrella technology which will seal the small hole as a result that is between the flashing and the standoff. So the umbrella nut is the sealing method on the top there. That is our patented umbrella technology, and it's going to be very competitively priced for both competing with standoff and other tile replacement products that are currently on the market. As mentioned previously, there are 3 types currently. There is a flat tile replacement, a W tile replacement, and an S tile replacement. So probably about 90–95% of all of the common concrete tiles that are out there could be served with the use of this product. I'm going to ask Josh to step in on the junction box here.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. So one of the takeaways we saw in interviewing installers and in working with our own crews and people like Grid Alternatives is that the amount of accessories and in some instances the number, as the systems have gotten larger, the number of strings that we're paralleling on the roof and providing sorry, not overcurrent protection, but paralleling has increased. So and you know, if you're anything like I was the first time I got up on the roof, I looked in that thing and said, my fingers aren't even going to fit in there, let alone having to work on, you know, splicing and wiring and set screws, etc. So we took that to heart and we developed, you know, really simply a larger junction box. So it's still got all the same ratings and waterproofness, but it's substantially larger than the typical junction box we've come to market with. And if we advance one slide, we'll see some different variants we've got on it. So this is the junction box portfolio, as stated there. We've still got the top left corner, the J box for rail. Same attachment, same sizing, kind of everything you guys are used to. We've got a J box XS with a comp kit, which is a new development. So standard size box with standard base track and comp flashing for use with railless systems. So obviously with a railless system, you're not going to have a rail for this to attach to. You'll have to provide another connection point, and that's that flashing you see there. Bottom left, you see J-Box, and I realize I'm going through these in the wrong order. I should have done top left, bottom left, but bottom left, J-Box XL for rail. So you see there the addition of those clamps with the patented snap and rack, snap in attachments. So just the larger XL box for railed systems. And then on the right, you see this is a new development as well. This is the larger XL with comp kit. So again, for use with railless systems, the large size XL box with the flashing and the L-foot that you need for attaching that to the roof. Okay.
Okay, and for wire management, we have a snap-in wire management clamp. These two clamps, we used to have one that was specifically for the N-phase cable, and one that was specifically for PV wire that would hold 4 wires or 2 N-phase cables, or 2 separate products. Now that the N-phase product line has switched to a different wire that is only a 2-conductor tray cable, Snap and Rack has produced a universal wire clamp, and that clamp will hold the 2-wire tray cable or 1 or 2 PV wires on each side for a total of 4 PV wires, or 2 of the N-phase tray cables, the Q cable. So that is a new product, that universal wire clamp. As you see on the bottom right, the legacy products are on the top right. Those will be phasing out. And this is a very nice addition to for wires either jumping rows or also right before you enter into a junction box, providing a very secure fitting on the wire prior to entering a junction box. So the RL mounting system, we're eagerly waiting on this here. So this is due to for imminent release. So the RL mounting system basically has the SnapRack module, all the modules in portrait, with different mounting feet, which will attach directly to the edges of the modules. Advance the slide, and we'll get some of the components here. So we have several different mounts depending upon where they are in the array. The A mounts will be on the front of the modules. The B mounts will be all of the middle clamps of the modules there. The C-link clamps are attachments for when modules don't need to be bridged there. And also all of this is sealed with the new flashing, with the new patented umbrella bolts that we have there. Josh, do you have anything to add on the RL component overviews?
No, just that that umbrella bolt. For me being a solar geek, not new to the market, but new for us. And from what I've seen in the mock-ups and the prototypes and the pilots that we've done, seems to seal really well without a lot of additional, M1 or goop or anything else to really seal up that penetration. So as excited as you could be about a bolt, I am.
And just of note, the Snap and Rack configuration tools do have these new products available for starting to size systems. So we do encourage, if you are interested in this product, to check out the configuration tools prior to trying out your first project, just to see how those components lay out. But we're real excited, as the RL lineup will eliminate the costly shipping and delivering of rail, and provide for a very aesthetically pleasing system for installing on the roof. Advanced slide, let's see what we got. So here, as Josh was saying, getting excited about the umbrella bolt and the new flashing system. It is a single lag screw that secures the flashing, the base, and the mount assembly to the roof with one attachment. And it is a patented pending technology that will provide a 20-year weatherproofing. So the flashing protrudes into the cavity underneath the lag bolt, and basically helps and assists the sealing of that roof. So here, some of the Snap and Rack components, the A and the B tracks. So those mounts, once the flashing is secured, snap into place, as with all Snap and Rack product lines, and that allows for 6 inches of north-south adjustability. So some other competing railless product has to be pretty precisely placed to ensure a nice even level mount and a nice parallel rows of modules without a lot of adjustment. You can see that there's a 6 inches of travel fully for the north-south for these mounts to make sure that they can be aligned properly. So the A mount is the front mount, and basically that's going to provide a very nice view for the homeowner without the need for an additional skirt. Other competing products have essentially a rail in the front that is a structural component of the system that needs to be put in place to ensure that the modules stay in place. Here we are doing away with that, hopefully lowering the cost of the system, and it provides a very secure sleeve mount attachment. You don't have to reach over the module. There's no bottom side fastening of the module that's required. It's basically an edge clamp that is grabbing onto the module and securing that into place. In addition, lots of vertical adjustments with the string line feature. We can easily level these mounts to get a nice flat table-like array. And all module frame heights that we have currently, we have 32 millimeter, 35, 38, and 40 millimeter attachments. I would guess that if some module manufacturer becomes very popular and comes up with a different frame size, that we would consider adding a different mount for that as well. The B mounts, they're to clamp on the middle and the top edge of the module. These basically lock into place once the modules are lowered down, and then provides the base for the next row of modules to be installed. Again, these are frame specific, so we do have to make sure that if you have a 35 millimeter module, we make sure that the A and the B mounts and the C mounts, if we'll talk about them in a minute, are ordered, that we make sure we have their correct for the frames that we are specifying. And the mechanical fastening is done along the top row, so there's no need to reach over the modules to get to clamps that might be inaccessible. So you don't have to put a module down and then reach over the top to secure it. These are secured prior to the next row of modules being assembled. The C-links, these provide the bonding and structural components between two modules in a row, and the C-links attach, again, to specific frame module sizes, and they can be installed independently or in conjunction with the A and the B mounts. We have a new wire management clip called our Smart Clip, and that will provide wire management attaching to the mounts there. These easily tuck the wires away. It'll hold 1 or 2 PV wires. And also a brand new feature, so we're pretty excited about this, not only for the RL product, but also for our standard product. This is a wire saver feature, so this can be installed after the fact or during the installation. So if you were with one of those inspectors that catches one of your wires dangling, this has got a little cat paw, can reach down between the modules, grab a wire that's hanging too low, and pulled up from the top of the module for last-minute wire management. So this wire saver really is a very nice component that should be kept on all installation trucks if using Snap and Rec. Now we have an optional ridge mount. So this is, I think this is the C mount, right, Josh? No, this is an extended B mount. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, so the C mounts, I'm sorry, so the C mounts are for the top row. So we have an extended B mount, and this is for use for jurisdictions do allow installation of modules right up to the top of the roof and don't require a 3-foot setback, basically to ensure that we have a good flashing and module sealing for the roof. This extension will allow us to reach up within that 3-foot boundary and provide the module top clamps to be right along the top ridge of the modules. Correct, Josh?
That's right. And don't hold me to this, but I believe I've seen some prototype pictures where the module actually extend, the ridge mount extends to the ridge, the peak of the roof, and the module may actually extend up above beyond that. I was really surprised about that. Always you want to consult with your AHJ. But if they do allow for that, this would allow you to have that kind of installation.
So we went through the Snap and Rack railless component overview and ABC mounts, along with wire management and the ridge overhang mounts and the C-links for attaching modules in the series. Josh, anything to add to the component overview for railless?
No, I don't think so, but you do see there that we've listed all of these components by the there's a length there. There's a height. That's obviously going to be the thickness of your module frame. Now, what's slightly different in the past with Snap and Rack, we used standard measurements for the mid clamps and end clamps. You will need to know the thickness of the modules you're working with, and the components will vary by thickness. If you ever have any questions on, you need us to look something up, or you needed to you realize you ordered the wrong product, perhaps, obviously reach out to your salesperson or customer service or even the tech team, and we can get you pointed in the right direction.
And I would strongly encourage you using the Snap and Rack configuration tool. If you do have the right module inputted into the configuration tool, it will spit out the correct A, B, and C components for those modules. So if you're using a Solar World module or an REC module, or if you have the right module in there in the tool, if you don't see the module in question, there is a custom module that you can input the height of your module. So the bill of material will spit out. The tool will produce a bill of material that will have the correct components as needed.
Correct.
Okay, so features and benefits. Josh, do you want me to do this one too?
Sure, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, no problem. So the main features that we're seeing for railless and the benefits to the installer and also ideally to the homeowner. So with the elimination of rail, we're providing a cost-saving benefit for the whole system. So the logistics chain gets a lot smaller. We can ship the products to the area in much smaller, more compact packagings. The A-mount feature provides a very sleek and front finish. We don't need that skirt, which, again, for some components is almost as bulky and long as a rail. It is an integral mechanical feature required to mount these modules. So we have improved upon the concept of needing that for a railless system. All the mounts are pre-assembled. Again, we are using a single tool to make this installation fast and easy. And the system design only requires that the modules are secured. Sorry. So the design feature of railless is that we don't have to reach over top of the modules to tighten up the middle clamps. We're securing those before we're installing the next row of modules. So that's less steps during the install, less leveling, and that's a very time-consuming process typically for a railless system. Ultra Rail. So in addition to the railless product, Snap and Rack is also releasing another railed product this year, and calling it the Ultra Rail. So this rail, we were listening to the needs of our customers and industry trends, trying to become very cost competitive with a lower cost rail product out there. And so we took a look at all the places where Series 100 is currently being installed, and analyze the needs there and what the wind and snow conditions were, and basically went back and redesigned the Series 100 rail to be lighter, smaller, and with a different profile, but still keeping all the features and benefits that the Series 100 rail has entailed. So this is the profile of the rail, and side view there. Advanced slide, please. So with this Ultra Rail, since we don't have the side channel in the Series 100 rail to grab onto, it did require a new L-foot attachment, so a new roof attachment method needed to be done there, but still wanted to keep the snap-in feature that we had enjoyed, and the ability to adjust the rail left and right. So this new L-foot will attach to a standard flashing and a standard one-hole base plate, and it allows for the new rail to just snap into the top, and with a single tool snug it up and tighten that up. The components are all spring-loaded, so it provides leveling capacity for capability for this product. And again, we're shooting for not losing the components up on the roof, and quick and easy installation, so all the components are coming pre-assembled. And so we really hope that you're going to have a great experience with this new rail. So with the Ultra Rail, the mount is installed, the L-foot assembly is put down there. So there's no nuts and bolts, no fumbling around, and it's easily secured with a single half-inch socket. So we're going with the half-inch tool again, so still don't have to add a different tool to your toolbox. It's still the half-inch socket. And the rail can easily be moved both up and down and left and right prior to securing the fastener. So it's an easy slide and adjustment to level and position the rail. So this lighter rail, it's still going to be very sturdy. It still it keeps all of the mid clamps, all of the end clamps, all of the junction boxes, all of the wire retention clips. All of that will work with the new rail. We still have the top channel, so wire can still be placed inside the Ultra Rail channel with a black snap-in clip or the wire clamps. And the rail channel provides lots of room and a place for wires and cable, both end phase and for PV wire. Josh, can you talk about the span tables and how they came across with deciding exactly the strength and the engineering for the Ultra Rail?
Yes, I can, just at a very high level. So why span tables matter? So these are the various combinations of snow load and wind loading that you're going to have to account for on a job, and various color coding to tell you which are the approved spans in certain products. So rails having different characteristics. We see here on the bottom right, the bottom right, you see there the Ultra Rail. We've really taken a lot of material out of that rail. You no longer have the bottom channel for strength and rigidity. You basically just have a U channel. On the right above that, you have the profile of the S100 rail, and you would imagine there with more rail, with a bigger cross section, you'd be able to accommodate longer spans, so fewer attachments, longer spans in the same wind conditions. So when we looked at this at our Series 100 standard rail, we realized that we can in a lot of the areas we do business in and where our customers are located. We see that we can accommodate 10 and even 8-foot spans. And we thought about what's the trade-off between rail cost and attachment cost. If you look, if you're paying attention in some of those attachments and flashings, et cetera, there's a considerable amount of cost and material in those attachments, but there's a lot of cost in the rail too. So what we imagined was, well, if we can take off the bottom third of that S100 rail, obviously we'll have trade-offs to make in the spans, but maybe in some of the markets we cater to, that won't be such a big issue. So on the S100 standard rail span table, we realized 10 and 8-foot spans, there's not a real good, there may not be a great business case there, because you may be working on, excuse me, you may be working on a project where you don't have that many modules in a row. Excuse me, you may have, a broken up roof or maybe just a small array. And in those instances, a lighter rail, if you will be much more cost effective. And in the past, when we looked at this, I think that the focus was on safety, obviously, and strength and reliability. And maybe in the past, we just didn't do enough of a good job investigating the use case and actually testing the engineering. So with the Ultra Rail, we're able to accommodate 6-foot spans or less in and I wish we had these loaded here with certain markets, but markets like St. Louis Obispo, where Snap and Wreck hails from, Sacramento. Sorry, hail was not a pun. We've had a lot of hail in California this week. But we noticed we could accommodate a lot of the markets with 6-foot spans at a much lower price point, and that was really the rationale behind developing this product.
And if I can add to that, there are certain jurisdictions that I were installing in California where, yes, you could do an 8-foot span or you could do a 10-foot span in certain conditions because we don't have snow in California. But a lot of the jurisdictions that if you tried to do an 8 or a 10-foot span, they'd immediately throw you into requiring structural engineering calculations to make sure the rafters could support the weight of the roof with that sort of a span. So with that, so the rail might be certified for an 8 or a 10-foot span, and everything from the foot up is okay, but what type of pressure was being put on the structure underneath. And to be quite honest with you, the 3 installation companies I work with just defaulted to 6-foot spans, even if 1 or 2 of them they could do with an 8-foot span.
Great point. Yeah.
So also, so this actually probably should have been up with the Ultra Rail. I'm sorry, the Railless, but I guess this is applicable to everything. So we have a module level power electronics. So any of the end phase microinverters, solar edge optimizers, the new SMA Power Plus optimizers, all of those. We have a frame attachment kit now. So for any of the Railless product, or if you just want to have your optimizers already attached to the modules before you bring them up to the roof, or for any commercial racking that doesn't have the rail, for example, some ballasted racking systems. We have a frame attachment kit now for optimizers and for end-phase microinverters. So a single bolt again attached to the side, and for optimizers and for microinverters that attach with a single device, one of these MLP kits can be used to attach those. Some older microinverters and devices might require 2, so we would just double that for that. Okay, Caitlin?
All right. Excuse me. Thank you, Josh and Glenn. So I'd like to go ahead and start off the question and answer session now. If you have any questions, go ahead and submit those through the question pane located on your control panel, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. You can exit the webinar at any time during or following the question and answer session. Again, there will be a survey that pops up in a new window once the webinar ends. Go ahead and give us your feedback, and I will send the presentation over to you. I'll go ahead and start off the first question from Paul. His question is, I am in South Florida with 180 mile per hour wind load requirements. Will these pass engineering and permitting here?
Josh, are you primarily answering questions, or you want me to?
I'm going to start out with an introduction and say, well, it's really more of a dodge, and say that's really going to depend what kind of spans you're engineering. And I mean, with those kinds of wind loads, you're going to have to be very prudent, obviously. Frankly, I don't know that Ultra Rail would be a fit, but the RL product we've designed predominantly for the East Coast, where unfortunately you guys have a lot of that kind of weather. So that may be a fit. I would say, we'd have to check those specific conditions and the configuration tool to give you an answer you can take to the bank.
All right, so we have another question from Paul. Does the mount that goes into the trusses have or require flashing to prevent water intrusion if water is flowing beneath the tiles?
Okay, I can take that one.
Yeah.
So in general, most jurisdictions are okay with a generous amount of M1 under the base plate. Sorry, I am talking. Okay. Under the base plate, there is an additional underlayment flashing if that is required. The peel and stick double butyl rubber product we have, the Protecto wrap, that could also be applied underneath if needed.
All right, and a question from Bob. I assume the solar array needs to be a perfect rectangle for the railless system?
I would say no, not necessarily. What would you say to that, Glenn?
No. It doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle. Basically, with the C-links and with the mounts, either a stepped array, so a row of 7 followed by a row of 6 followed by like a row of 3 would be fine if you're doing that. The configuration tool would basically spit out the correct number of module attachments and the correct bill of materials for any particular array. I don't think railless is suitable for a single module or just 2 modules sitting out there. So if you have a really broken up array, probably that's not the case. But it's not limited to strictly rectangular arrays. I know there is some competing product out there that if it's not a rectangle, it doesn't float. So that is not the case with our railless product.
And for the railless, your flashing and most flashings go under the top two shingles and then go over the third shingle. With that adjustable bar, how does that work?
I don't quite understand the question, but the flashing kits for railless are very similar to the existing Snap and Rack. So basically, it is a flashing that is for composition roofs that is pushed up under the first two rows of tiles and then sits under, the composition shingles, and then sits on top of the third. So it would be installed just like your standard Snap and Rack flash kit, but with the umbrella ceiling bolt. So the flashing is pushed up underneath the composition tiles.
And then a question from Dan. He's curious, when will the RL system be available on AEE?
Josh?
Yeah, great question there. So we're hoping very soon. We're hoping in the next couple of weeks that we'll have kind of full general availability. What we found so far this year is that a couple large customers who were, maybe on the fence with it, came back to us earlier in the year and said, yes, absolutely, let's run full speed. And based on previous commitments to them, that's pushed out the general availability date. But we do hope to have full stocking position of the RL product on the East Coast. I'd say at the beginning of April.
Great, thank you. And the last question we have here regarding RL, you mentioned not needing to reach over the modules to tighten the feet, but on the photo there was a C-link on the outer edge. Would you recommend getting to the C-link pre-assembled? How would you recommend getting to the C-link? Pre-assemble it? Sorry.